I will just send a reminder to all the participants. So one more thing I would like to inform you all, this FDP, that is Faculty Development Program, is supported by Government of India, and all the resource person invited here will be getting a certificate also after the completion of this workshop from the institute. Now we are going to start this session. To formally welcome all. Good evening, everyone. Today is the day 5 of AICTE ATAL FDP on design thinking for next generation AI solutions. And today we are delighted to have Professor Daniel Lake from Elon University with her associate Anya in this meeting today. So we are going to start with the session very soon. But before proceeding, I would like to request the session coordinator of this session to introduce the resource person of this session formally.
Good evening, everyone. Today, I, Jigyasa Arora, on behalf of Gurukul Kangri, deemed to be university, welcomes you all. Today, we have with us Dr. Daniel Lake. Dr. Daniel Lake is the Director of Design Thinking and an Associate Professor of Human Service Studies at Elon University, North Carolina. She holds a PhD in philosophy from Michigan State University, and her teaching and research bridge design thinking, wicked problems, feminist pragmatism, and the scholarship of teaching and learning. Before joining Elon in 2019, Dr. Lake served as a coordinator of the Accelerated Leadership Program and assistant professor of liberal studies at Grand Valley State University. Her work focused on building collaborative, community engaged learning model that foster resilience and innovation. A widely published scholar, she also co-edits the Peter Lang book series Higher Education and Civic Democratic Engagement. We welcome you, ma'am, and the session is yours.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here. We're very excited to share this work with you. It's been incredibly well received in the past year and a half. So we were asked to focus on the role of design thinking for AI, for artificial intelligence. And the work we've been doing here at Elon University is about helping students and faculty and community members use artificial intelligence in a way that is more effective, but also more ethical. And we've been in partnership with a lot of others over the past year and a half in designing and piloting this program. We've got some really great research to share with you, and we're really excited to be here. As they said, I oversee the Center for Design Thinking here at Elon University, which is in North Carolina, the United States. It's a sort of mid-South, I would say. And we'll talk a little bit about the university. And I have the honor of overseeing an incredible student team of 30 students. And I'm here today with one of our student leaders, a former student director, the current student body president of our university, Anya Brodich. And I would like to have her also introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. It's an honor to be here. Thank you so much for having us. My name is Anya Brodich. I'm a senior here at Elon University. I have the opportunity to study international and global studies as well as public policy, and I have a minor in public health. I've been working at the center here since I was a first-year student, and I've really been able to grow in my own presentation capacity, in public speaking, in creative thinking, in design thinking. And I'm really excited to be talking about AI today with you all. So thank you for having us.
I should also say that the session we're going to describe to you and the strategies we're providing were co-designed in partnership with student leaders. And so it's always been essential to me to have them represent their work. So this is very much a student-led initiative in partnership with our other centers across campus. And we'll talk about that in just a second as well. But I wanted to say a little bit more about the Center for Design Thinking. This is a pretty unique space. Few institutions of higher education have centers like this. We are situated at a mid-sized university. We serve about 9,000 students. We are a liberal arts private university here in the United States. We have consistently been named the #1 university in undergraduate education, and we were just named the #1 university in global engagement as well. We're known for experiential learning, for relational learning, and design thinking fits really nicely, creativity, relational learning, into that work. So we're grateful to be here. This center got its start because of a lot of enthusiasm from faculty, administrators, as well as parents. And so in 2016, a pilot project was launched to design a studio in social innovation. They brought in a consulting director to create a space, to start piloting programs, and then realized they really needed a full-time faculty member to lift this work up. So I was honored in 2019 to join the team. We then grew a student leadership across campus, where we chose to engage the campus community through design thinking sessions across the university. So when I came here, they said, do what you want, right? They said, create your own vision and run with it. But there's only 3 things that you must do on top of whatever else you want to do. One is you must reach students with design thinking. Number 2, you must engage in the critical study of the work you're doing, right? So bringing the best practices of problem solving, of creativity, of design thinking, and contributing to those. So you must engage in the research. And number 3, you must oversee a conference that we call Design Forge. And I can share that opportunity with you again towards the end of our session. This year, we're going to offer an open access virtual way to join us in the Design Forge in 2026, starting in January. And the goals of that Design Forge is this. It is to build our capacities to bring those best practices to our work, to our lives. So other than that, the vision for the center was ours. And again, we started to grow that. As a faculty member, I'm used to partnering with students. And so we've developed a student team. In 2020, 2021, you can see here the number of sessions we're doing continued to grow. We also started doing consulting work, taking what we're learning to other organizations, not just universities, but also community organizations, businesses, government entities, to help them, reaching over 6,000 people. And again, that work has continued to grow over the last few years. And so we are as busy as we can be, which is also really an honor and a joy. Let's see here. This is another visual representation. The kind of ways we bring design thinking to our community is incredibly diverse. We design sessions to respond to whatever it is they're facing. We've done them for the horsing industry. We've done them for, again, governments, for universities. We've done them around wicked problems, access to housing in the United States, issues of social justice and inclusion and policing. We have sessions on designing your life for wellness. We have them on bringing a sense of purpose and play to the collaborative work you're doing, on how to better cope with failure. And as you see here, we have this one on AI. We also have them on how you can use these processes to address your own implicit biases, to cultivate what we call liberatory cycles. We have other sessions on how to network and build mentoring constellations and so on. So again, very, very busy. We consult not just regionally, that's a picture of North Carolina and all of the organizations that we're partnered with, but also nationally and internationally. And we assess and research everything we do. And what is astounding to me is across over 90 facilitators over 6 years, our sessions are consistently incredibly highly rated. And that's because all of that assessment data comes right back to the facilitator, right back to the center, and we use it to refine and enhance what we're doing. So consistently, our participants say, this was relevant, this was meaningful. I'm going to use the ideas and strategies you gave me. I understand the value of this, right? On a 7-point Likert scale, we consistently score between a 6 and a 7 on feedback from our participants. And that, I think that speaks to the value of design thinking as a process for helping people design the lives that they value, that they want. for helping us to solve problems. So this is just an image of our incredible student leadership team. Again, it continues to grow. We actually have about 30 students on our team at this point, and from all across the university, speaking to, as he said, the faculty here in this room. This is not a disciplinary endeavor. This is not just for business or engineering or computer science or communications. These kinds of creative, collaborative problem-solving skills are valuable for everybody. So a little bit about how we define design thinking. We see it as a process, as I said earlier, for helping us find our way when we get stuck, right? For helping us design the lives we value. It brings with it a set of methods and strategies and tools so that we can get unstuck. And over time, it helps us to develop a mindset of living into the lives we want, of innovating, of coping with failure and failing forward. And that's actually the current study we just launched, is to look at the long-term, the longitudinal value of infusing these practices into your life. There are very few studies that have been done on the long-term value of this work, on how it does shift mindsets and shift lives. And we're very excited
Rajendra, Prasad,
to bring those findings.
Dora,
Looks like somebody might need to mute, but that was so cute.
Akshay.
All right. So bringing that mindset to our lives, right? We have a few studies that show us that this absolutely does that, but we're looking forward to contributing to that study as well. We have our own process and heuristic or visual guide for doing this work. There's a lot of these guides out there. Most of them are very similar, but I want to walk you through ours a second to try to highlight the value of it. And as I do, I want you to think about where in this process you inherently thrive. All right. Where in this process do you think you have a lot of strength? And I also want you to thinking about which stage is a struggle for you. Where do you think you get stuck? And if possible, I'd love you to place your answers in the chat box. So as I walk through these 5 stages and you find one that resonates with you, or you hear the one that is your Achilles heel, the one you're challenged by, go ahead and share that in the chat box with one another. Our first stage, we begin with framing. And framing is figuring out what the problem is. We mentioned briefly that my dissertation work was on wicked problems, and even figuring out the problem is incredibly hard to do, right? There's a lot of unknowns, there's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of discord. What for me is the problem is like a benefit to somebody else, right? And there might be a lot of unconscious biases around the way I see the problem. So figuring out the problem is the first stage from within us, like figuring out our perspective on the problem. That's framing. And figuring out why we're motivated to care about the problem. This stage is essential because if you don't care, you're not going to do anything about it. This stage of the process is also essential because studies show we as humans would rather not have a problem. We would rather deny that there's any problems or blame other people for those problems. So framing, becoming aware of the problem and taking accountability for it. There's a problem, I'm a part of it, and I am motivated to create change. That is, for us, a first stage. Without that, it's really hard to make any progress without motivation and awareness, right? And so that's the first stage. And again, some people would rather not do that work. That does not feel good to us to take that accountability piece. So maybe framing is not your thing. So if that's true, go ahead and put it in the chat box. Exploring, or if you love finding problems, share that as well. Exploring is the second stage, and that's looking outward. That's the research for a lot of us as faculty in the room. That might be our thing. I love gathering evidence. I love learning, right? And I love gaining advice from others. So exploring, I'd say I thrive in that stage. I love gathering evidence, revealing insights, all of those things. That's stage 2. But others, there's a vulnerability to asking for guidance and feedback. For opening ourselves up to asking questions. So for some, that's a barrier. They get stuck in this stage because they don't want to seek guidance and reveal that they're struggling, right? The third stage is generate. That's the brainstorming stage, and it uses a different part of our brain. So for some, again, it's a hard shift to make, to get really, really creative, to think outside of the current structures and cultures of our lives can be hard. To dream can feel risky. And so again, some people thrive in the generate stage, some people get stuck. I would say I get stuck a little bit there because I want to solve the problem so quickly. I don't give myself time to dream enough as I should. All right. So again, where do you thrive? Where do you get stuck? Stage 4, as you can see here, is the prototyping stage. And that's where you move to action, right? And simple actions, small actions, you just try to make progress. You do anything you can to test out your assumptions, your dreams. You just push it. You try to push something into the world and share it with others. You take the risk of doing. I will say, studies show this is the most underutilized stage of the process of innovation. We don't do. Why? Because it's hard and it often hurts. When we start to prototype and do, it takes time to make it great, right? So the stuff we're doing is not quite working out the way we wanted it to. You think about your dream and then the lived reality, and that's a hard stage to move through. And so prototyping is often not used as much as it should. And for us, the fifth stage, the final stage, is about cultivating the solutions you value, creating change, staying in the work, not giving up. And again, I'd say I'm decent at that stage because I really want to solve problems. I really like doing it. So I'll take breaks, but I'll come right back to them. But for some of us, we're just like, I'm done, I'm out. So again, if you have space and time in the chat box, we'd love to hear from you. Which one of these stages do you love? Where do you thrive? And where do you get stuck? And we're also sharing this with you because we're going to move through all of these stages today in our session with you. We're going to begin in framing and we're going to move through each stage of the process. But being aware of stages you love and stages that you get stuck in can help you with those next steps. All right, so we're going to share a little bit before we jump in on the research that we have found from these sessions so that we can emphasize how valuable they are. So what we're going to share with you began a year and a half ago at the beginning of the fall semester in partnership with our Advancing Artificial Intelligence Initiative, right? We have a whole center for that. In fact, Elon is well known for that work. We designed it in partnership with them and with 3 of our student leaders. We launched this in January of 2025, and we've been offering it ever since. We've done over 30 sessions for over 700 people. And again, it's been incredibly well received. Out of those over 700 that have been in attendance, we've had over 635 responses to our research assessment. So over a 90% response rate, which is incredibly high, showing that our attendees, for the strategies we gave them in this session, they found this to be very relevant, easy to follow. It provided them with ideas and strategies they plan to use to more ethically and effectively engage with AI in their professional and scholarly lives, and it enhanced their interest in doing this well, right? That's really, really important to know. So we hope that with that information in mind, you feel comfortable taking these strategies into your own work here. A little bit of more information we received from our past participants. Consistently, the reason they valued this work was because it was interactive, right? They got to learn AI by doing it. We had facilitators that were well trained. It was relevant and practical information, right? Those were the top key indicators we got back from them. And they also felt that what was most valuable was getting better at prompting AI in a way that was effective and ethical for them, at using these tools to help them study and do the work they need, and that we provided them with specific frameworks for continuing to do the work well, and it's going to help them, they realize, in their future professional goals. So a little bit of background on that. I also want to share before we turn it over. Oops, let me see. I'm going to share my screen one more time. There's something else I want to share with you here. I'm going to minimize this and just point out that this work is also Elon University as a leader in this work. I'll share this link in the chat box, but we have actually published an open access guide for helping students use AI in an effective way. And we did this in partnership with all of American Association of Colleges and Universities. So this has been a very well-received guide. I'll share links to it in the chat box as we move over to Anya presenting the work, because you might, downloading that guide and looking through that might also, I think, be a valuable resource for you. All right, so I'll stop sharing and let Anya jump in.
All right, hello everybody. Give me 1 second here as I just try to share my screen. Okay. Very good, Dr. Lake. If you could just let me know, can you see my screen all right?
Yes, we see it.
Fantastic. Yeah, I just wanted to quickly touch on this before we actually transition into the workshop piece. Um, our students value our workshops for so many reasons, but there's two reasons that really come to the surface that I think really speak to the value of what it means, what our workshops mean to students. Number one, you can see for highly engaging, 92%. Students love hearing from other students. I think they really value when they come into a class and they see that it's not a professor, it's not somebody older than them that's delivering this information. It is somebody who is their age, who is in the same shoes as they are, and they can see themselves in the student and they're much more willing to respond to other students in that sense because it's kind of like we're all in the same boat together. I think other things that students really like, you can see here for provided ideas, resources, or strategies, I will use 94, almost 95%, as well as over here, when we kind of give them tools that are very practical, they really, really appreciate that and they can actually see them using it in their life. I think a lot of students find themselves in spaces and places where maybe they're just going through the motions or they're participating in activities, but they're not necessarily getting anything from it. And that doesn't always feel great to students, but we are different because we actually give them tools and strategies that they genuinely can see that they want to use in their lives. So Dr. Lake just described to us the design thinking process, and we started off with framing the problem. This whole concept of trying to find the root of the problem. I argue the frame stage is my favorite stage. I really see the frame stage as one of the most important ones. It's really important to get to the root of the problem before you start any other stage. That way we can really figure out what is the core of this problem here and how can we better solve it. So that's kind of what I want to do with you guys today here. We need to solve the problem. What we know the problem is, and this is something that we saw at Elon, we saw that students were trying to use AI to solve their problems, but they weren't doing it ethically or effectively. Lots of students use AI, but what I would see is a student would have, let's say they had a paper for a class, and instead of going to AI to help them enhance the work that they were already doing, the student would simply go to AI and ask ChatGPT, for example, to completely write their paper for them. And I share that to explain that that's not an example of ethical or effective AI use. Not only is it not ethical because all of the information is essentially plagiarized, it's also not super effective because the student didn't have any ability to learn in the process. They didn't get to figure out exactly how to write a proper paper. They're simply offshoring that to somebody else. So this is the problem. Now we want to know immediately, right? Our brains are thinking, well, how do we solve this? How do we make sure that students are starting to use AI ethically and effectively? And my answer for you all is faculty, faculty like yourselves who you truly have the power to shape the way that students are starting to use AI in ethical and effective ways. Um, but essentially, we recognize that students haven't been taught this work yet. Um, and that's often because professors haven't been taught this work yet. Our essential goal today is I want to give you 3 very practical tools that you can take, that you can use, you can modify for your own classes in the way that you teach, that are going to help you teach your students how to use AI ethically and effectively. I've definitely seen at Elon how a lot of professors, we kind of have a weird split where some professors are definitely on the AI train and they want to use AI in their classes and their coursework for their students. But we also have a select group of faculty who are still a little bit hesitant about AI and don't know yet how to incorporate it into their classrooms and their curriculum, because I think there's a lot of fear around it, and very reasonably so. This is still a very new thing. But I think if we want students to use AI ethically and effectively, there has to be some kind of intervention. And that intervention is professors who can come in and actually share with students how to do this work well. I think that'll ease professors' fears around it too, because now the professors will know that their students have been properly trained on how to use AI platforms. So that's the work that we're going to be doing today. These are the 3 tools, the very practical tools that I'm going to be walking you through to explain how you can do this work better with your students. The first rule we're going to be talking about is just simple rules, ethical AI usage rules that are going to be in the back of your mind anytime a student would go to use a chatbot, just to make sure that we have a very good, solid foundation of ethical usage. The second thing, and the prompt building formula is probably our most highly renowned part of our workshop. Students really, really enjoy getting to figure out how they can prompt build better to get more out of using AI platforms. And then the third thing that we're going to be talking about is this whole concept I like to call mind before machine. Essentially, we should never use AI as a crutch for the work that we do. We never want it to completely replace. We simply want it to enhance. And that is what mind before machine is all about. So we just finished the frame stage. We kind of figured out what the problem is. We know students are using AI, they're not using it ethically or effectively. Now it's time for us to explore. And in the explore stage, I like to think of myself kind of like a sponge, where I'm just going to gather a bunch of insights. I'm going to be absorbing information, not yet doing anything with the information, but simply taking it all in. So in order to do this, we need to first ask ourselves, what is AI? What is this? How do I explain this to others? And the best way we like to do that is kind of like this. We give a pretty broad definition of AI, and I think people don't recognize that AI is a little bit broader than it actually is. It's a field of computer science that uses machines to stimulate intelligence, like us, humans. I often will ask students, can you guys give me examples of AI? And they're very quick to point out ChatGPT or Claude or something like that. But what I like to get them to think about is to kind of go back to like 2015. Your phone has a lot of AI incorporated into it. A lot of us have iPhones where Siri was kind of our first glimpse into what artificial intelligence looks like. Or a lot of people with Echo devices or Alexa devices. That's another example of artificial intelligence. But what the students often think AI is, and they're kind of right, they think of these things called large language models. So all of these different platforms at the bottom are examples of large language models. I think this slide is really important to talk to students about, just so that they can have that solid foundation of understanding what exactly it is that they are talking about. And I think having the proper terms can be really helpful to students. LLMs, or large language models, are this type of generative AI that is trained from humans to analyze prompts, and they come up with human-like responses using this kind of language prediction. This is a very complicated process, but this is essentially what you need to boil it down to for students. So then we have to explain to the students why it's necessary to use AI, to know about it, to incorporate it into your classes. I kind of start with this first statistic, and this is just one study that was done from Microsoft and LinkedIn professionals. They did this study and they found that 66% of leaders would not hire somebody who didn't have AI skills. And moreover, they also found in the same study that 71% of leaders were more likely to hire somebody with less experience who had AI skills than a more experienced candidate without AI skills. I share this to students because I think that when you're in college, there's a lot of fear around what is my job going to be? How am I going to succeed in the workplace? How do I even get a job in the first place? And I think that this is because everybody is wanting a job. I think that this is really a good statistic for them to know so that they understand how important it is to really start to build AI skills and to look at actually what leaders in the workforce are looking for. And in today's day and age, they are very much looking for AI skills. I often hear this from students as well. I hear that they're fearful AI is simply going to replace them and is going to take their job. What I like to kind of ask students to reframe in their minds is not to think about AI, the thing taking its job, but somebody, another human who knows AI better than that student could possibly be a more competitive candidate in the field and take a job that you were wanting because they had AI skills, kind of going back to this concept. So I'm kind of just sharing and explaining why it's so important to have these skills. We also share that students might want to use AI for personal reasons. And I don't think that they often think of this because it's always been talked about in a very academic setting. There are many reasons students might want to use it personally. For example, let's see. For enhanced learning, a lot of our students are taking language courses here at Elon. Duolingo is an example of a way that you could use AI to help your own personalized learning, to help you learn a language. Quizlet is another platform that a lot of students use for improved comprehension. They use Quizlet to help them study for quizzes, and ChatGPT as well. You can really ask it any kind of question, even if it's a personal one, just to simply enhance your own learning, even outside of the classroom or outside of the courses you're taking. Also for wellness. I think this is one especially students don't recognize that they could do, but it's a fantastic use. Wellness and well-being, we have a huge initiative here at Elon to prioritize wellness and well-being for our students. There's so many great habit building platforms like the ones kind of down here that students can use to help them in their own wellness journeys. Also for productivity, the thing that we often think about these LLMs doing is making things more efficient for us. Otter AI and Motion and ChatGPT can all help us with time management, saving time. I know that I've used AI platforms before to help me with transcription in interviews because transcribing your interviews by hand takes a lot of time. So you can be more productive if you have platforms like these that can help you out in your own personal journey. And as well as just simply unlocking your potential. There are so many different platforms that we have nowadays that can allow us to develop new skills or to explore new careers or to get better at using Adobe or these other kinds of graphic design tools. Well, AI has really been incorporated into these platforms, and I think it's very exciting that students are now able to kind of take a lot of this initiative on their own and find platforms that are going to excel them and take them to the next level in their own careers. So here's kind of just big overarching like personal reasons that you might use AI for. I think it's important to share this with students as well as the academic reasons you might want to apply AI in. Okay, so now we're going to jump into the first tool. And again, I want to remind everybody that we're still in that explore stage. I'm going to give you guys 3 AI usage tools. These are kind of like rules that you should always have in the back. What I tell students is that you should always have these in the back of your mind. Anytime you go to use a chatbot, anytime you're using AI, we need to set an ethical foundation. That first rule is originality. What I like to say here is that AI is simply a tool, but you're the artist. Think of AI as being the paintbrush that is simply carrying out what your own mind is creating. I often tell students to think about famous painters like Monet or Van Gogh. When you look at a piece of their work, you can tell that there's something so distinct, so characteristic about that work that you know it's a Monet painting or that you know it's a Van Gogh painting. And that's what I really want to share with students here is that you want to make sure that you are represented in your work, that people recognize that your work is yours. When you start to offshore your assignments to ChatGPT or another platform, your personality gets missed and it's going to end up being a very generic kind of thing. If more students are doing this, it's going to just be this kind of blend of meh, as opposed to having elements of originality, making sure that your personality is really shining through in the work that you're pouring out. So that's the first rule. Our second rule is accountability. This is all about transparency and disclosure. Anytime we're using AI, I tell students that you need to make sure that you're giving credit to the AI. Take responsibility for using it. I have found in my own experience, a lot of professors here at Elon would much rather students have disclosed that they used AI for XYZ purposes, as opposed to not sharing that they used AI at all and then getting caught for it for non-ethical use. We have several resources here at Elon that show students how they could properly cite their usage of AI, just like they would for any kind of journal article or website or research paper that they used. Same concept applies. Always have to give credit and take responsibility. And then our third AI ethical usage rule. This is my favorite one. It is called human in the loop. Essentially, you want to make sure that you are always steering the AI ship, always making sure that there's some element of humanity, even when we're using platforms like AI. I often like to get students to kind of think about I'll ask them, like, how uncomfortable would you feel if the pilot of your plane decided that he was only going to be driving in autopilot? You would not feel so comfortable because you would want to make sure that if there was something malfunctioning with the plane, that the pilot would take over and respond in that instance. We want to make sure that there's always that pilot of the AI ship. Making sure that when we're using AI, that we are the ones who are guiding it as opposed to the AI guiding us. This one, we're going to be able to practice this one today, making sure that we do have an element of humanity at all times whenever using AI. So again, these are, excuse me, these are the 3 ethical AI usage rules here: originality, accountability, and human in the loop. The second tool that I want to introduce you all to is proper prompt building. This is probably by far the biggest thing that students really take away from the workshops that we give. I think they see this as the most valuable, the most practical tools that they could really see themselves start to use in their lives. So a lot of students at Elon are using ChatGPT, like I explained. They're using these LLMs, and they're putting in a lot of good prompts. But the prompts that they're putting in could be great prompts using this formula that I'm about to introduce to you all. So let's see how we can turn a good prompt into a great prompt. I want to start with the poor prompt here, just so we can kind of get our framing of what a really bad prompt looks like and how we can improve it. So this poor prompt says, come up with topic ideas for an essay in my political science class. And during this time, I would ask students, well, why is this an example of a poor prompt? And every time I get very similar answers between different groups, students will say, well, it's very broad and it's too vague and there's no element of specificity. I have no idea what I'm exactly supposed to do. It's not specific enough. Yes, exactly. It's not specific enough. What can we do to enhance this? And so that's when I introduce them to a better prompt, where it says, create an outline for a 1,500 word political science essay on disinformation in modern societies. Immediately, this is 10 times better because we've made it more specific. We've now said that we wanted an outline. We've said that we want it to be 1,500 words for an essay about, and we even give it a topic, about disinformation in modern societies. So this is probably an example of a prompt that you might see your students. I've definitely noticed our students here. This is a type of prompt that they would be putting into ChatGPT. However, it is my job to take this prompt and make it even better. So here's how we do that. Here's an example of a great prompt. This says, you are a college writing tutor. You are taking a political science course and writing a 1,500 word essay on the topic of disinformation in modern societies. Please produce a potential outline for the essay, suggesting key points to cover and possible sources to research. Cite the sources for your response. So immediately, like even just visually, you can see that the great prompt is one, much longer than the other two. That's because we've added a lot more detail. We've added, you are a college writing tutor. And we've kept that whole part that we had in the better prompt about taking a political science course, writing this essay on this topic. But we've also added that we want the chatbot to produce a potential outline for the essay, suggesting key points to cover, possible sources to research, and we even want it to cite the sources for its response. So immediately, this is so much better. You might be asking why it's so color-coded, because we have used, let's see, we have used a formula, a prompt, to help us get to this answer. Now, I will say, as much as I would love to take credit for this formula, This did actually not come from my brain, but it came from our student guide that allows students to navigate college in the artificial intelligence era. Dr. Lake already talked about this a little bit in the beginning. We mentioned that we've partnered with AACNU, American Association for American Colleges and Universities, to create this guide. It is serving as kind of a national model for what proper AI usage for students might look like. So this is where I got this prompt build role, context, task, format. That's kind of a mouthful, so I like to say RCTF. Here's what that looks like a little bit more in depth. As you can see, I've color-coded and corresponded every part of this formula to the example that I've shared. So I like to share with students, the more that you give to the chatbot, the more you are going to receive in return. So you have the opportunity.
ये गम नहीं है, ये हॉट ग्लू बोलते हैं, इसे प्लास्टिक है ये।
You have the opportunity to give a role. Oh, let's see. Okay, great. You guys have the opportunity to give the chatbot a role. You can say, you are a college writing tutor. You are my mother and I need advice. You know, you can really tweak the role to kind of fit exactly who you're wanting it to be. You could say you are a college advisor. You could say you are a professional development associate. Whatever the role needs to be, you are a professor. You can really make this very creative and try to get the response that you're hoping to receive. The second thing is context. So that's the part in the pink here. I tell students, act like you are talking to an alien from another planet who has never been on Earth a day in their lives. What information can you give it so that it can understand exactly what you're talking about? Pretend like it has no context or information for anything. And that's where you really want to give the most amount of context that you can. And then you have to give it a task. What are you hoping to receive from it? That part is in blue, so we want a potential outline. And then the format will share with us exactly what we want the task to produce. So we want key points, and we also want sources for the response. So this is an example of the formula that we give for students to help them prompt build properly. Now, what I'll get students to do during this time is I want them to practice this. So I intentionally give them a bad prompt, something that would help them a little bit, but not nearly in the capacity that would be if they made it more personalized. So I ask students to go to ChatGPT and I say, give me study tips. It's very broad, it's not specific. It doesn't speak to their major, it doesn't speak to what quiz or test they have coming up. So they practice this, and our workshops are very interactive. So I go around to the students and I will say, okay, like what responses did it give you? And for a lot of students, they're getting the same types of responses from AI. And so that goes to show that like, how can we improve this if we are using RCTF, that proper prompt building formula? So now that we've gone through the first and second tool, again, the first tool, just to remind you all, was ethical rules for AI usage. The second tip was proper prompt building formulas to help students really take their prompts they're putting into ChatGPT for the next level. And now we're going to go over this tool called Mind Before Machine. Now, this one is one of students' favorites as well. I kind of introduced this whole concept as brain first, AI second. This is what it means to be mind over machine. We want to make sure that we are always using our own minds before we go and consult AI. This is really important because I think a lot of students are recognizing how easy it is to go about AI usage, just to simply offshore what they're thinking and put it in for somebody else to think about. But it's, again, essential that there's always that human in the loop anytime we go to use AI. And that's where I think people, students will really value kind of thinking about things in their own mind first and simply using AI to enhance the work that their brains have already thought of. So here's how I kind of go about explaining this. I have students at the beginning of the workshop pick a scenario that they're going to be working through during the remainder of our workshop. We'll have them either pick one of these. So maybe a lot of students, especially if they're third years or juniors in college, they're going to be needing to find jobs or internships. And so they can use AI to help them in that process. Other times, students will be needing to write a paper for class on a particular topic, and so that might be really interesting to them. The third situation here, I need to study smarter, not harder. A lot of times I've noticed how students will come from high school and they kind of have this mentality of, they breezed through high school really easily. They never felt a huge need to study, but now they're in college. The professors are asking a lot more of them. They never learned how to properly study in high school, and so now they're needing to do so in college. So for those students, I recommend them picking the scenario, I need to study smarter, not harder. And then finally, a lot of students, especially our older students that are looking for jobs, need help designing professional development plans. Essentially, they need to start building their own brand, their own persona. How can I make myself look competitive in a very competitive job market? So for a lot of them, that means creating LinkedIn or really tweaking their resume to fit exactly what they need, or figuring out what opportunities they could get involved in while still in college that are going to help them get to the next level that they might need to look competitive in a job market. So I have all the students choose one of these scenarios. Then we go through the design thinking process with the students, and we're going to have the opportunity to do this here in a little bit with you all. But I first asked them, like, we need to frame the problem, right? We talked about this earlier today. Like, let's find the root of the problem. Something that I don't think students utilize enough is the fact that you could use AI, you can use these platforms to actually help you think through the root of the problem, to get you to brainstorm a little bit more about what am I truly looking for. You can ask AI to ask you questions. So for example, here in the brain first part, students can ask themselves, why do I want to, or why might I need to study smarter, not harder? Why do I want to? Why do I need to create a professional development plan? Just to even get them frame it in the first place. Think about what's the motivation behind doing the thing that you want to do. I also ask students to think about why they might feel stuck in these situations. It's very easy for students to not necessarily know these things unless they're asked specifically. So by asking AI, they kind of have that thought partner to really bounce off of. And then you can even ask, what is stopping me from getting a summer job or internship? What is stopping me from writing this paper in class for this? These are all really good prompts you can put into ChatGPT to help you get thinking. Once they do that and they've thought about it in their own brains, I then ask them to take out their computers. We're going to be using ChatGPT today to think about how AI can help us in this. So now we're going to jump over into AI second. Now we're going to be using AI. Here are some potential questions that you might use and ask AI to help you better understand the framing of your own problem. So you can ask AI, you can literally ask it, what questions should I ask myself to better understand why I would want to or need to find a job? You can also ask, why might I be feeling stuck doing this? And how can I get past it? Or what might be stopping me from finding that summer job or internship, from creating that professional development plan? So you'll notice that the same questions that we put in the brain first and the AI second categories here are the same. That's because we're simply using AI to already enhance the same work that our brains are already doing. So this is a really, really good tool to just simply get them thinking mind over machine. Now, once they've properly framed the problem, and again, like you can go back to the AI piece and you can ask it different questions, but it's sometimes helpful to ask yourself and AI the exact same question to see the differences that you might get in response. Okay. So then we're going to explore a problem. And we just did this together, right? Dr. Lake explained that when you're exploring, you're gathering insights, you're simply learning information. I told you all to kind of, in this stage, you act like a sponge. What can you take? it's really helpful, actually, I think, to think about in your brain first. What can I already think of? What are the most important things to know about writing a paper on this topic? I find that students actually know a lot more than they think. They don't need to go and consult AI first because they already have these skills ingrained in them and they know exactly what they're thinking about. So you might ask yourself, what do I already know about going out and finding a job? What do I already know about writing a paper? These are problems that we know students are having quite often, but they're also tweakable. So let me go back to this slide. We know that students are struggling to find jobs. We know that these are all scenarios that students at Elon, at least, are struggling with most. But in your own classes and your own universities, it might look a little bit different. So these are very tweakable. Another thing I like to think for students to explore is who might be a good resource that's going to help me with my scenario. For example, at Elon, for the students that are thinking about needing job help or support, making a professional development plan, we have a really, really wonderful resource called the Student Professional Development Center. This is a resource students can go to start to get help finding that job, help building their resume, help building their CV, all those kinds of things. So the students might even know already that they could go to the Student Professional Development Center and help them with these things. So that's all I'm thinking about brain first. Then going to AI, kind of asking similar questions again. What are the most important things to know about my scenario? Maybe when the student plugs this into ChatGPT, they find that they actually learned something completely new that they'd never even encountered before about what the most important things about their scenario are. Another one that I think is a really fun prompt is to go to ChatGPT and ask, what are some common debates or differing perspectives about scenario? This is especially a good one for if the student chooses the research paper development. Maybe they can find some common debates, differing perspectives about the research topic that they've chosen. The third one, what are areas of this scenario? So what are areas of studying smarter that people don't talk about enough? What are things that maybe I can't think of in my own brain because I've never encountered the perspective before, or I've never seen this being talked about? ChatGPT can be really good at that kind of thing. Any kind of AI, LLM platform can help you think about things that maybe are more niche or that don't get brought up as often. So this is all about exploring. And then this is the generate stage that we go into with the students. So now we need to start brainstorming solutions. We've kind of found the root of our problem, really framed our problem properly. We've explored some potential ways that we might start to learn more information, but brainstorming is all about figuring out how are we actually going to do this work. It's the how piece that's really, really important here. So what I like to tell students is think about the absolute easiest possible way to go about finding a job. Or on the other hand, what are some more creative or unconventional approaches that you might consider that could help you think about how you might go about finding a job or creating your own resume? Another really fun tip that I actually didn't include on the slide, but I wanted to let you guys know of. I had a class one time and my professor allowed me to think about, we were trying to find different types of policy, and we were using AI to help us brainstorm different policy solutions. And we had to come up with reasonable, radical, and ridiculous policy solutions using AI. And that was a really, really fun spectrum of ways to think about how we could solve problems, all the way from super reasonable and like almost so obvious that we could just naturally do it to ridiculous. And a lot of the ridiculous solutions that AI gave us were so ridiculous that they would simply not be usable. But the whole point of this brainstorming section is to dream, like Dr. Lake said, is to think about the things that you feel like are really out of reach, but that actually might be possible with just a little bit of tweaking and a little bit of effort put behind them. So to get students to think about this spectrum of things, the easiest thing all the way to the most creative or unconventional approach. So something that I've seen students actually encounter in this is they'll put in the prompt, what is the easiest possible way to approach finding a job or getting an internship? And they'll obviously talk about the power of networking for an easy possible way to approach it. That makes a lot of sense, using LinkedIn, using your alumni platform and panel. But some creative or unconventional approaches that AI has given us. And now these are a little bit silly, so take this with a grain of salt, but it's simply to get students thinking. I've seen how AI recommended to a student that they send a pizza along with the resume to the company that they're applying to try to persuade the company they're applying to. Now, that obviously might have some effects that they didn't want to receive, but again, it's just to get students brainstorming about some ideas that they might want to have. So that's when we also go here to AI. Asking AI very similar questions. What's the easiest possible way to approach this scenario? Also, you could ask, what are some perspectives that I'm not considering? It's very hard to get out of our own head sometimes to think about this perspective from another person's point of view, but that's where AI can be most useful and most beneficial, to think about the things that you're not thinking about. It's hard for us to get to think about things that we don't know because we simply don't have the capacity. Another way I really like to use AI in the brainstorming stage is to quantify the answers that you're looking for. So I gave this example right here. What are 10 ways that I could go about writing this paper on disinformation in modern societies based on this criteria? Now, another thing I want to point out is you'll notice at no point here are we asking for a solution. At no point here are we saying, take my rubric for this paper and write a 10-page paper on this topic. That's what we want to avoid. That's what we're trying to stay away from, because that's not an effective usage of AI, as opposed to asking for 10 ways that you could go about writing this paper based on this criteria. So thinking about different perspectives and different approaches that you could take to the debate that you might be writing a paper on. 10 different ways that you could go about creatively finding ways to apply for a job. It's a lot of brainstorming in this stage here. Okay, so I want you all to have the opportunity to practice these kinds of things that we were talking about today. So you can kind of put yourself in the perspective of a student thinking about how you might take this work to your classroom. Now, I've given a lot of strategies and ideas, and I want you to know you're more than welcome to take these and run with them. Please feel free to take the examples that I've given you and tweak them, modify them in a way that you think is going to be best for your students. So I have some practice prompts here. These are things, and again, I'm not exactly sure what you might need in your own capacity as professors, as faculty, in your own classes, but these are some practice prompts that I want you guys to think about. So maybe you know that you need to draft an email to your students. Maybe you are coming up with an exam and you're having a little bit of trouble thinking about exam questions that you think are going to be fair for your students, and you might want AI to help you enhance some of the questions that you could be asking to your students for their exam. Or maybe you're having trouble creating a rubric for an assignment that you've given your students. All three of these prompts are things that I thought you all might need some assistance with, that you could put into ChatGPT to figure out how this kind of stuff works. At the same time, if you all have other challenges that you're currently facing in your classes, please use that. Please use that for this next step as we start to practice the 3 tools that I gave you all today. Maybe there's something completely different that you're struggling with your courses, with your students, that you want AI to help you with. These are just some practice prompts to get you thinking. So now we're going to be generating. This is where we are going to start to actually put the pedal to the metal, generate ideas and solutions for how we could do this work. So again, here are the practice prompts. Now I want you all, and we can do this quietly kind of by ourselves, but pick one of these prompts, and I want you to incorporate all 3 of the tools that we learned today. So remember the 3 tools, and I'll have them here so you guys can remember. So we have that whole concept of the ethical AI principles, originality, accountability, human in the loop, as well as our prompt building formula, the tried and true prompt building formula in the example underneath it, and the whole concept of mind over machine using our brains first and AI second. So what I would like everyone to do is today we'll be using ChatGPT. If you do have another preferred LLM, I will encourage you to use that. But if you don't have a preferred one, ChatGPT would be perfect to use for the purposes of this today. We're going to be using ChatGPT to help us with these practice prompts. So in the very similar sense, I think I showed you guys back here, we got students to practice with a poor prompt. I want you all to practice with the prompts that I gave you up here. So take some time. We'll give you all about, let's say, 10 to 15 minutes to practice these 3 AI tools that I gave you today, using these practice prompts over here on the left, or a prompt of your own that you think would be most helpful for you in this session. Does anybody have any questions that I could help answer? And you're more than welcome to put them in the chat as well. Okay, wonderful. Well, we'll give you all about 10 to 15 minutes. Start to practice these AI tools. Always remember to be original, accountable, and keep that element of human in the loop. Use this prompt building formula, put in a fun role, provide a lot of context, and then always make sure that you are actually thinking about it in your brain first and then consulting AI second. So we'll give you all about 10, 15 minutes to do this work, and then we will come back to finish up the workshop.
As you jump in, I also want to add and respond to the question we had in the chat box. We've been talking a lot about the use of AI for helping us with our work around students, around grading, or emailing, communication, those parts of our job. But the question was, how might this help me with the research I'm doing? And you can use these same prompts and formats to think that through as well if you want to, right? The role, context, task, and format to fill that in. And so I was brainstorming that with the research I mentioned we're doing here. So my example of that was telling the AI, you are an interdisciplinary researcher studying design thinking, right? There's the role. You are conducting a mixed method study to validate the value of design thinking over the long term. Please do an internet search to find peer-reviewed research articles that study the long-term value and outcomes of design thinking. And I think I was also asking it, APA citations, and we'll see how it goes. But anyways, I'm going to play with the same thing as well, thinking about the study that I was talking to you about and what kind of resources would I need. So just another example that might help you all if you're thinking about the value of this for not just your teaching, but also your research. And I think then we'll, again, please feel free to unmute and ask us questions as you work. But otherwise, we're going to give you a few minutes or place them in the chat box to generate your own prompts.
Dear participants, you have some time. You can try out this practice prompts. You can draft an email announcement for my students. You can create 3 exam questions from your lecture notes. And you can create a feedback rubric for a small assignment. It's a practice session. You can take some time to practice yourself, and then you can share your feedback. Yes, we will be discussing about how to write smart prompts.
As you work as well, we would love to have you share your prompts in the chat box so we can see a variety of what everyone is doing and thinking about, as well as how you think it went. Like as you put it into the, how did you like the feedback you got, or how did you tweak it? And so as you craft these, please go ahead and also share them in our chat box for us. And then Anya as well, if you have any thoughts on how to, other ideas on how to help us write smart prompts, feel free to weigh in there as well.
जो भी आ
Everyone continue working for just a few more minutes. But as you are working, please put the prompt that you put into your preferred chatbot into our chat. I'm really curious to see what the prompt that you put in looks like, and any feedback that you got from the chat that you think would be really useful. I'm already seeing one come in here. This looks really great. Very good use of role context task format. Thank you all so much.
I really love, and I have a question, Sarchit Khan, like we have this prompt here in the chat box saying, explaining what you want AI to do, but then there's this piece at the end saying, to better understand what I want and need, you should always answer by including a question that helps you better understand the context and my needs. Did you understand? And I'm not sure if you're able, but I'm really curious what kind of a response you got and if it was really valuable and if the follow-up questions were also valuable. And in general, for those of you that created prompts and ran them through AI, how do you feel like it did in supporting what you needed?
We want to hear from you. So either you can unmute yourself or put it in the chat. How did you like the response that the AI gave you? I really do like that point that Dr. Lake just made. I think it's so great to, if you tell it something, I've noticed that these LLMs are very obedient. And if you say, after everything that I put in, I want you to ask me questions to get a better understanding of my context and needs, it will do that. That's a really great thing to include. I hope others can take that away from what Sartaj has put here. Very good. I'll give you guys just about, let's see, 2 more minutes to wrap up, and then we'll get started again. All right, we're going to continue going with the workshop. We have about 15 minutes here. So just the last few steps for you all. Okay, so now we've reached the prototype stage. This is the 4th stage in our design thinking process. Essentially, this is where I like to tell students, because sometimes prototype is one that they're not super familiar with. But prototype is just another word for experiment. Let's actually start to try out the things that we have learned today. Let's start to try out these tools. And you all just did that a little bit. What I want you all to do in this next step is we're going to be thinking about what you are going to start, what you are going to stop, and what you are going to continue working on when you use AI. So, for example, with start, maybe today you really liked the RCTF formula for prompt building, and you are going to start doing that. Maybe before coming here today, you were very anti-AI and did not see it as a practice that you would start doing. But so maybe today you are going to stop avoiding AI usage in your life. Or maybe there's probably a lot of you that were also doing these different tools that we have. and you want to continue using ethical practices in AI. You want to continue with the whole concept of mind over machine and making sure that you're using your brain first before AI. So I want you all to think about what you're going to start, stop, and continue doing with AI and write it in the chat. So just very quickly in the chat, for start, write what you're going to write. For stop, what are you going to stop? And then for continue, what are you going to continue in your AI usage? So if everyone could just write that in the chat, I want to see your answers. Let me know what you're planning to start, stop, and continue. So I have just put an example of what you might put for the start, stop, and continue in the chat, as did Dr. Lake. So feel free to look at those and use those as an example. And then we want you to put in the chat what you want to start, what you want to stop, and what you want to continue. I'm seeing some answers come in. Thank you so much. These look really great. I like Satish, this using for general information to stop doing that, but continue for complex scenario understanding. I think that's really good and it's very practical and it kind of gives you a time and a place in which you would use AI. So I think that sounds fantastic. That's a great start, stop, continue. I like this concept here of starting prompting with human in the loop. That is what I like to see. Very good. And without, yeah, I fell into this too. I'm gonna stop going to AI without any context. It needs context. So I like that you're going to stop that, Nirav. I'll wait for just a few more answers. Maybe we can get 2 more answers in the chat. I love this. Using AI more intentionally, absolutely. And I also love to see that we're using AI to help us with storytelling. I think that could be really powerful. Those are great answers. Thank you all so much for participating in that. So as we're getting close to wrapping up, we're now in the cultivate stage, and this work does not end with Dr. Lake and I here today. The cultivate stage is all about you taking what you learned today and actually taking it to your class. You might think that you want to share something with your students after today, but then you bring it to them and it didn't quite work out the way that you wanted it to. In that case, you would go back to prototype. You would go back to generate, even back to explore or frame to figure out what you could do to better help and support your students. So this work of cultivating is really, we've kind of prepped you up until this point. And now the cultivate is you take the things that you found most useful in our workshop, bring them to your students and see how they like to enjoy it. Dr. Lake, I think, has a really, really good perspective on what it means to cultivate. She does this work all the time, and she's definitely taught me how to cultivate better in my own life. But I think it'd be really useful to hear a little bit more from her about the value of cultivating and what that really looks like in this space.
Absolutely, right. And so, I'm not sure I am. So again, it's easy to have good intentions and let ourselves down. The actual work of building the mental models of shifting our habits of thought is incredibly hard. And it's as simple and challenging as doing the work every day, right? Building those mental capacities. And it's really important because the more we do this, the more effective we are at it, the less cognitive load it requires of our brain, the easier it's going to be, right? To integrate this into our lives in a way that is more effective and more ethical. In a daily way to make our lives better. And as I was invited to create a vision for the center, that was exactly that I want to design opportunities that help us live the lives we value, to design our lives differently. And so this is an opportunity, if we stay in the work, that's the kind of black squiggly line there, of figuring out what works for us on a daily way so that we're using our time in the way that we most want to create the kind of conditions we want in our lives. And so I'm really excited by what you might do moving forward. Again, as easy and hard as staying in that work. Strategies for doing that, of course, is sharing your intentions with others and holding yourself accountable to the work so that you feel good about that. We're going to put a link in the chat box for you. And like we said, all of this work that we do is directly assessed by our Center for Design Thinking. It's a part of a really important critical research study. We actually have an article forthcoming in one of the leading journals on the scholarship of teaching and learning about the value of these practices because of the feedback we've received. So we're going to ask you to click on this link here, and it's going to ask you a few short questions. For the workshop type, you can choose the AI workshop option. This is your class or program. You would just type in the letters of this organization and you would click us as the facilitators and provide that feedback that's really essential to help us think through what is needed next. We are especially eager, and these findings we can send right back to all of you to inform the next steps for what kind of professional development do you most want in your lives. So again, we have just this brief survey there for you to complete. You can click on that link I just shared in the chat box. That will provide some really critical information that can help us design sessions that would really, and that we can share back with you, that would really support your next steps. One other piece that I would love to share with each of you, I mentioned briefly that I oversee an annual convening that brings design practitioners, researchers together to help support these kinds of effective practices. And this year, we're going to offer it in a virtual, open access, free platform so anybody can learn from some of the leading scholars and researchers on this work. We're going to have one person a month on the fourth Friday of the month, the last Friday usually of the month, from January to May. If you're interested in attending these sessions, you'll find more information about it on our Design Forge website. So I'm sharing the link for that in the chat box. Another link will lead you directly to our conference site where you're going to see past resources. But again, we've got some incredible design thinking practitioners from across the world. Our first speakers are going to be the authors of Relationality, which is Arturo Escobar and his co-authors, Vikal and Kriti Sharma. And then we have Leslie and Noel and a series of others that will be talking about various design thinking practices and how we can infuse those into our work and our lives. And other than that, we can open it up for any final questions.
Well, I wanted to jump in and to
Participants, we
thank you
can
all.
have some. Yeah, please continue, please.
Oh, okay. I wanted to jump in and thank you all for being attentive and responding to all my questions in the chat and really just engaging in this workshop. It was so exciting for a group of students, including myself, me and two others, we created this workshop around this time last year. And it's just been such a joy to see this workshop really come to life. And for me as a student, it's been really empowering to be able to come up with these ideas and be able to share them. And now I'm sharing them with faculty like you all. But I wanted to just emphasize how important it is and that these strategies really do work. And as a student myself, I actively use the prompt building format and I always think about the ethical principles. And so this is really valuable work. And I think that your students will definitely get a lot out of it. So please share this information with them. We want students to use it ethically and effectively. And I'm happy that I was able to be here today to share all this good work with you all. So thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
We have one question real quick that I want to address, and I think it's really, really important. If and when you are interested in using AI for your research, you want to do so very carefully. If you have a publication venue or conference venue in mind for what you're doing, you should look to them to see what their policies are. Some really do not want the integration of AI. Most, I've seen a big transformation in them asking you to just to be explicit that you have to have a statement at the end or the beginning of your article in your submission that says how and why you chose to use AI in the research that you're doing. And so I would again say proceed cautiously, look to the publication and presentation venues that where you would like to share your work. And often they have statements available for what they would like to see. And then you can then those guidelines can help guide you in making some of those decisions and being explicit about it. Yeah, great question. Thank you so much.
So if there are no more questions, are there any questions?
Dr. Soaz, may I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Good evening, ma'am. My name is Sartaj Khan. My question is, how do I build a prompt library for my daily work?
You asked how can you build a prompt library for what?
For my daily work.
Oh. Great question. My first thought, and I have Anya chime in, but that's that step of taking time, right? So figuring out if this is really valuable, starting there, and then brainstorming like, what other parts of my work would I love to have prompts for? And saving those, right? Archiving them, calendaring them, and starting to build on them, I'm imagining. So it takes both, it takes different stages of the design thinking process, right? So framing what parts of my work can I cause me the most problems, are time consuming in a way that is detrimental, that sort of a thing, right? And how might AI help me reduce the cognitive load or the time investment? How might it help me with these tasks? And then using that, and you can prioritize as you brainstorm all of the ways that you would like to have more support from AI. You can choose the ones where you think the impact of cultivating that habit of prompt building, right, of shifting that load, the impact would be really helpful for you. And so you would start there as one strategy I have. Anya, you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I think you can even use AI to help you with that, actually. You can, if you use a prompt one time, and you really like that prompt, tell AI, because it will remember. If you say, I really like this prompt, my students really like this prompt, can you help me by start building a prompt library? And every time you have a new prompt that you really like that you think works well, you can tell the chatbot to add it to your prompt library. Or you could even have that stored in a separate place, like in another document of just examples of prompts that you've used in the past. That way you can kind of start to develop literally like a library of different kinds of prompts that you might want to use in the future. That's a great question.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we are towards the end of this session. I would like to especially thank Professor Lake and the research associate Anya for delivering such an enriching and insightful session today. Your session was elaborated on design thinking and stages of design thinking process was not only deeply informative, but also truly inspiring. The way you explained each stage with real world examples made the concepts more clear for all of us. Our students and our participants will greatly benefit from the ability of simplifying concepts of complex ideas. We are especially thankful for the engaging practice session on prompt writing. It offered our participants a hands-on opportunity to apply the principles of design thinking in a creative and interactive manner. The activities sparkled curiosity, encouraged critical thinking, and helped the participants gain confidence in approaching problem solving with a structured, user-centric mindset. Professor Lake and Anya, your dedication, clarity, and passion for teaching were evident throughout this session. Your willingness to share expertise and guidance for our learners will undoubtedly leave a lasting impact on their academic and professional journeys. I would like to thank you once again on behalf of the organizing committee and from on the behalf of our university also. And Professor Lake, I would like to invite you to visit our campus. And Anya, you too are also invited to visit our campus physically. It's a beautiful place near the Holy River Ganga. And the participants, if you are also free at any time, you all are invited. We will be soon beginning to start this process of applying this process of having this design thinking workshop in a physical mode so that we can meet, greet, and exchange our ideas over this platform. So I thank you again for your valuable time, your thoughtful preparation, and your commitment to empower our participants. We look forward for future collaboration and more opportunities to learn from your experience. Thank you once again. And Professor Lake, I have just shared you with one more acceptance we have recently got for a book proposal in a Scopus indexed publication by Bantham Science. I have shared the poster with you. We will soon be discussing more about it.
Thank you. Thank you for this
Thank you.
Thank you all.
opportunity.
Thank you.
It's been an honor.
Thank you.